Hello everyone and welcome to the Student Spotlight, your go-to podcast for meaningful conversation and deep insights on life of students studying abroad. I'm Parin Shah and I'm excited to embark on this journey with you. We'll delve into the conversations that's sure to leave you thinking. In today's episode, we have an inspiring story of Devika, who is from Assam and is completing her MBA at the University of Oxford. Before coming to the Oxford, she spent 8 years in a boarding school and then completed her BCom honors from Delhi University to become one of the few younger students to get enrolled for an MBA at Oxford based on some quality work experience on her back. Devika received a handsome scholarship from Said Business School for her vision on women in finance. Tune in to get inspired by her journey, listen to her viewpoints and her fantastic vision for her future.
I come from a small town in India called Dibrugarh, which is located in Assam, and in 5th grade, my parents decided to send me to boarding school. So I went to boarding school and I was there for 8 years. It's called Mayo College Girls' School, and one of the reasons I chose to go there was because there aren't a lot of educational opportunities in small towns, and my parents wanted me to get the best education. So I went to boarding school for 8 years, post which I was in Delhi University for my undergrad. That's where I studied BCom honors, majored in finance, and that's when I realized that this is something I'm interested in, working in venture capital, private equity. So I worked for a financial services firm for the next 1 to 2 years, moved on to do investor relations for a while, and that's when I was in my trajectory, I realized that I want to upskill and try to get into a leadership role eventually, and that's when the MBA came into the picture. I wanted to apply for my MBA for a while. I was figuring out what universities, schools make sense for me, and one thing that struck me was even though I'd be in India or the UK or the US, I just wanted to aim for the best because it's my last degree of my entire life, and that's what made me apply to Oxford for the MBA, and now I'm here.
That's nice. So tell me, how were you in your academics? How much did you score throughout your schooling and your college life?
Right. So surprisingly, before I went to boarding school, in like my first 10 years of life, before 5th grade, I wasn't the best student. In fact, my parents were really worried because they're like, she's not scoring that well in math, English, like the most basic subjects. But once I went to boarding school, I think I got access to better educational opportunities, resources, and teachers. And that's when I kind of slowly built up my academic profile. So when I was in 10th grade, I scored a 94% in ICSE. And in my 12th grade, I got a 96% in ISC, and I had commerce with maths. So my education was pretty sorted by then. In my undergrad, I had a GPA of around 8 CGPA in Delhi University, which is kind of a little above average. The best would be somewhere around 9. An amalgamation of my scores and my work experience is what kind of made me apply for an MBA, because an MBA these days requires a mix of multiple things. You need to take the GMAT or the GRE, you need to have past academic records and the solid work experience that's needed. So a mix of these things is what I applied with.
Right. So how was your experience at the boarding school you went to?
Mixed, to be honest, because when you leave home at a very young age, it's not the easiest for a 10-year-old to be away from home. So initial few years at boarding school were a bit difficult in the sense that I kind of took time to adapt to the environment, being away from family and home. But it was the most rewarding experience of my life. I feel like had I not been to boarding school, I wouldn't be here right now speaking to you as well, because it pushed me to go beyond my comfort zone. It pushed me to do things which I wouldn't have done otherwise in my life. For example, horse riding or playing golf or taking part in Hindi debates or English debates. A lot of things boarding school pushed me to. I was like a fish in the pond, and the pond was unknown to me, but I had to make my space grow up the ladder. So it was a difficult journey emotionally to adjust away from home, but once I went through that, everything made sense to me and I saw the larger picture being there.
Right. What kind of skill set would you have developed in the boarding school versus if you would have studied in your hometown with the family? Do you think there was a major difference you felt?
Oh, 100%.
In your personality and in your confidence?
150%. Like I said, I don't think I would have the confidence to be here in Oxford or even apply at Oxford at the age of 24, 25. I think boarding school played a major role in helping me build my soft skills. So just to give you an example, I mentioned I come from a small town. A small town doesn't give you the same amount of exposure as a tier 1 city like Mumbai or Delhi or Bangalore. And So my first 10 years of life, I wasn't very comfortable talking to people from metropolitan cities because I didn't know how to. But once I was there, it was more like me learning from everybody and then growing to become an individual who can maximize on experiences. So boarding school kind of helped me with learning how to understand people from all sorts of different backgrounds, because everyone has a story of their own and you never really know. You can't really judge anyone's story by just a first meet. You live with them and you get to know people for who they are. So it really helped me understand humans better. So I developed a high emotional intelligence being in boarding school, which played a huge role in me just building my confidence and putting myself out there, be it for debates or drama or theatre or just academics, also achieving some things which I didn't think I would as a kid. So I think boarding school played a huge role in helping me build my confidence, my soft skills, talking to people from all different backgrounds and not feeling like you're lesser. You feel at par because you get to learn from everybody and you feel you have a story to offer to them as well.
Right. Yeah. Nice, that's good to hear. Now tell me about your work experiences. So you mentioned you completed your degree at DU.
Yeah.
And then you worked for a few years.
Yes.
Where all did you work? What sector were you in?
Absolutely. So once I graduated, I got a college placement from this firm called Tresvista. It's a Pune and Mumbai-based firm which focuses on providing portfolio management, private equity asset management services to other bigger PE funds. So I was there for a good 1.5 years. I picked up a lot of skills which I didn't in my undergrad because I was chilling a little bit. So when I went to Tresvista, I learned hardcore Excel, financial modeling, talking to clients with big AUMs, which are assets under management. So I picked up a lot of financial jargons. I tried to build a career early on in finance. So I did that for a year and a half. Post which I wanted to move to a more front-end role. Tresvista was more me doing portfolio management for PE firms. So it was a little back-end. I wanted to go more front-end and have clients as my main stakeholders to talk to. That's when I moved to investor relations for this fintech firm called Florence Capital. I worked at the founder's desk and helped them raise funds for their Series A, Series B rounds. Post that, I kind of had an idea. I now want to get experience which helps me further my leverage my skills for the MBA. So I applied to this firm called Goodera. I did CSR and impact invest management there. So I worked again at the client relations team. I worked with Fortune 500 companies like Oracle, IBM, Red Hat, and a few more. And I helped them understand how they could manage their CSR better. So I was amalgamating impact with finance before my MBA. And I thought that was relevant because coming to a global school, you need to bring something unique to the table that can really help me understand the world differently. So I worked across 3 firms, all morely under the space of finance or client management, and that's a space I'm passionate about as well.
Right, nice. So now tell me, when did it occur to you that you want to do an MBA or a master's, or was that the plan since your early days?
Not really. It was not my plan from the early days, because when you're in India, you think the IIMs are the best, the Indian Institute of Management, and it's not the easiest to get into those because CAT in itself is a tough exam. So I think I was very scared to take the CAT, and I thought that IIMs are my only option. So I didn't really aim at those, I knew that these options are there, but I wasn't very passionate about applying to IIMs. I always wanted something different for my MBA experience. So there came a time when I was working, and I was working in the investor relations founders desk team at Florence Capital. So 2 of my founders were from Princeton University. I watched them work and I saw that there's something different in the way they work versus someone else who's just had education in India. And I realized that sometimes you need to get out of your comfort zone to get a global experience, which brings you some unique learnings and lessons. And I realized I wasn't living up to my fullest potential at work. I was doing well. I was happy, I was talking to clients and doing my thing. But there was always this thing that I can do more. And one of the channels for me to do more was go like the routed via the MBA, because when you are young at 22, 23, it's not very easy for you to directly aim for leadership roles. But I saw MBA as an acceleration for me to reach leadership roles. Had I not chosen to do an MBA, it would take me another 6 to 7 years to then apply for leadership roles, right? So I felt I have it in. I was overconfident maybe a little bit, but I think I just wanted to put myself up there and think of myself in a higher way and say that I can add value, I can manage teams already, not at 23, but I could see myself doing it in the next 3 to 4 years.
Right.
And then I started prepping, thinking that, oh, I need an MBA. So I need 2 to 3 years of work experience more. Once I do that, I can then get a 1-year MBA and accelerate my career in the finance space. So I think it just came to me when I felt I wasn't living to my 100% potential and I really wanted to.
Right.
So that pushed me to apply for my
Right,
MBA.
right. What all universities do you think of applying or did you apply to?
So I thought of applying to a bunch of universities. I was looking at ISB, Oxford and Cambridge. But in reality, I only ended up applying to Oxford and getting in here.
Wow.
And it was my dream university. Somewhere, somehow, I just resonated to Oxford's story a lot. Maybe because the boarding school I went to had a British touch as well.
Okay.
So it was founded by Lord Mayo. So I had that education growing up and I felt I need 1 more year of similar experience, and Oxford resonated the most with me.
Right.
So I started, and my first cousin actually came to Oxford for the executive MBA as well. So, I was seeing her live the Oxford journey remotely and I was very inspired. So I was like, I'm either going to get to Oxford, Cambridge or nothing. I would have actually chosen not to do my MBA at all had I not made it to the top. But shooting lower was not on my list or my target. So I ended up applying to Oxford. I ended up getting an interview call. And I knew that if I get an interview call, I have higher chances to convert it. I wasn't very, very confident on my GMAT, GRE scores because I'm not the best test taker. But I had confidence in my interview skills. So I took the interview and I managed to get in. And I knew that now I'm going to pursue this. Had I not gotten into Oxford, I was considering applying to Cambridge for the next round.
Right. I get it. How much did you score for GMAT, GRE?
So my GRE score was around 320, which is considered an average score, not the best, but it helped me get into Oxford. Yeah.
Okay, right. Now, what we know is usually top B schools require 5 to 7 years of work experience. You mentioned you had 2 to 3 years of work experience.
Yeah.
So how did you manage to squeeze in?
Yeah. Actually, like I said, it came from this inner drive of knowing that you can do more. So earlier when I was applying to MBA colleges or researching about it, majority told me that you do need a bunch of years experience more, etc. Try to work for a couple of years and then apply to top M7 US schools and Oxford, like Stanford, Harvard and stuff. And I don't know, there was this inner voice or just basic learning which said that what's the worst that can happen? You'll get rejected, but at least apply. Oxford or any other university doesn't stop you from applying twice, even in the next academic year. So once I felt that I had the kind of work experience which someone with 7 years also had, I felt my quality of work experience has always been high.
Right.
Because the firms I've chosen have never been basis the big names. You may not even have heard of the firms I've worked with, because I've chosen a little smaller boutique firms because they've helped me grow faster. So I didn't work at an Infosys or a TCS because I felt there are so many employees there. So you don't have that personalized learning journey. Because I got that, I felt my quality of work experience was high enough for me to aim for an MBA. So even with lesser work experience, I think I had some things to offer to someone with similar but moderate work experience with 7 years of journey. So it just made me apply. I just had self-confidence. I knew that I have a story to tell. I had clear aspirations of what I want to do even after the MBA. So I think I was sorted in that space.
Right. Nice. Can you take us through the application process?
Absolutely. So I started preparing in general for an MBA when I was 22, 23. I had a basic idea that, look, I want to make it to the top B school. So I actually took the GRE a bunch of times because I did not score high in my first time. So I took the GRE thrice. In fact, before that, I even considered taking the GMAT, but I realized GRE is better suited. So it took me a year to kind of just prepare and do the GRE and get the desired score because I was doing it alongside work. Right. So around a year was me preparing for GRE. At the same time, I was molding my work experience, so that was going on. I had my past academic records. On the side, I wanted to volunteer and do a bunch of other impact-oriented activities which also boosts my profile but also helps me look at the world from a different angle. So it was a mix. For my application, it was a mix of my GRE score, my past academic records, my work experience and my trajectory in the work experience, the quality of work that I've done and have I grown up the ladder. in my work experiences, which I had mildly. And lastly, my extracurriculars and social giving back to charity, etc. So it was a mix of all of this.
Right. So did you have to write a long personal statement
Yes.
and another essays and stuff?
Yes. So Oxford actually has quite an extensive application process. I don't exactly remember, but I think I wrote around 5 to 6 essays, all different, and they kind of ask you things which you should know before
Right.
applying to the MBA, like what has been unique about your work experience, a personal statement, what kind of career options are you looking at post Oxford, and if you're not successful in getting those, then what's your backup plan? So it makes you think that, look, if I'm moving countries and going to the top business school, then I should actually be clear-headed and know what I want. So Oxford asks a lot of questions around that, and I had to write like 500-600 words answers for each of the questions. So that was one part of the application alongside my other transcripts and all of that. Once I submitted a written application, I then had to give a video, like a Kira interview. So they asked me a bunch of 4 or 5 questions by an automated recording device called Kira, and that was part of my first application part. Once I submitted my written application and Kira, then on the basis of that, you get a personal interview call. And if you clear the personal interview call, that's when you've gotten admission at Oxford. So that's how it's been for me.
Right. So what were the deadlines, or how long did it take for them to revert back to you?
So I applied in round 3. So I do remember the legacy date, which was 4th of January when my application was due, because I didn't celebrate New Year's that year and I didn't go to sleep for a few days. So if I was round 3 and I applied in 4th of Jan, I heard back from them around February for my personal interview, and in February, just a week after I heard back from them, I had my interview. And around end of February or March beginning, I had an offer from them. So after I applied, it took around a month and a half for them to convert it into an actual.
So the offer was after the interview?
Yes. So it took them a month to get back for an interview. Once I heard back for the interview, I took it, and after my interview, a week or 10 days to get the final offer.
Okay.
Yeah, so around March beginning or Feb end, I had my offer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. If I may ask, how much was your fee? How much is your fees, and what kind of scholarships
Absolutely.
they offered?
The fee is, it grows every year, but for the year that I got in, which was last year, September 23, I think the fees was around 71k pounds, which is in INR, it's around 75 lakhs. As far as I remember, that was it. But I had lucked out to get a side business school scholarship. So that's a foundation scholarship that they roll out to a bunch of kids who get into the MBA. You need to have something unique about your profile. And actually, for the longest time, I didn't know that I could even make it for a scholarship, because for me, getting into Oxford in itself was such a big deal.
Right.
That I had started arranging career loans, student loans for myself for the entire fee. I remember going to banks with my dad and trying to figure out loan options, because I didn't want my parents to pay the entire fee. I wanted to take a study loan on my own, so I could repay that post my MBA. However, once I figured out that all business schools, if you have a unique profile, will love to get you out on a scholarship, because they do understand you come from a developing nation like India or China or Japan, and they love to get people with diversity. So I had a case of women in finance, which made me apply for the scholarship. And having worked in women in finance, I had a case to why I bring something unique to the table. And I lucked out with a side business school foundation scholarship, which kind of gave me around 25-30% of my tuition fee. So that helped me, because that covered like my living expenses here.
Right.
And it eased my financial burden to apply to Oxford and come here.
Right. What other scholarship options are available that you know of?
Yeah, so there are actually a bunch of scholarship options, and if you go to the website, you will see an entire list along with the criteria as to do you meet them, or what could you do to kind of get that scholarship. I didn't know enough about it, I never thought, but I would love to put it out there that there are so many scholarships which even give you 100% of your tuition fee sometimes. So I guess 3-4 people are here on 100% scholarship from the business school. There is something called the Side Business School Foundation, the one that I have, that gives it to 25-30 kids of the MBA. So a lot of people also get that. Then there's something called a Forte Women Scholarship. So if you're a woman and you get a little bit of a preference because of the diversity quota to get a scholarship here. So I don't remember the exact names, but I do know that there are 7 to 8 types of scholarships that you can aim for when you apply to Side Business School.
Right. And so can you apply for all of them, or they just look at what your profile is and they grant it to you?
Right. So funny story, actually, when you fill out your application form, there's an option for you to tick if you would like to be considered for the scholarship or not.
Right.
I never thought I would be considered for a scholarship because I didn't think I would come to Oxford, right? So I didn't tick that because I thought that's gonna work against me.
Right.
But later on I realized the moment you tick that, your profile is automatically considered for most of the scholarships that's available at Oxford, I mean at Said. So always tick that option. It never works against you. It always works for you. It's only later, after I got an interview call and I made it to Oxford, that's when I realized that I still feel like I can get a scholarship. I still feel like I have a unique case. So I wrote to them and I applied separately. But for anyone applying, you can tick the box during your application and be considered for all the scholarships.
Which is quite a valuable tip,
Yeah,
right?
there are a few, like I think the Laidlaw Scholarship and the School Center Scholarship. Those require you to submit additional application forms during your application time. So ideally, if you're serious and you have a great profile, please do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's nice. So what's the cohort like? Like how many students in your class? How many Indians?
Yeah. So I think roughly we have a batch size of 338 people, and we have a lot of Indians in our batch because Indians are known for scoring very high in GMAT, GRE, right? So they make it here to Oxford. So I think we have around 60, 70 Indians. Okay, so around 20% of the class is actually Indian. Rest of them a lot from other nationalities. There are around 67 nationalities in our batch, people from such different places and continents, and it's lovely to have them. The male-female ratio is around female 51%, male 49%, and that's impressive because it's one of the few business schools with that kind of a ratio. So unique backgrounds, people from law, medicine, business, and even within business, all different types of businesses, family business or private, finance, social service, very, very different backgrounds. So it's a very unique batch size and batch type. Yeah.
How's the age range like?
It actually, the youngest person I have met at the MBA is 24. When I came, I was also 25, so I was a little on the lower side of the age. And I think it ranges from 25 to like 32, 33 in my experience. So the average comes down to 28. Yeah, that's your average age.
Nice. So what's in future for you? What are you planning to do after your course completes?
Yeah, so I'm actually looking to move back to India because I want to work to grow India. I know a lot of people after an international MBA choose to stay in the country that they have been, but I'm very passionate about women in finance. I'm very passionate about the idea of financial inclusion. So long term, I would want to work somewhere in that space in India. But for now, I want to work for the next $500 million in India, and I want to do it via venture capital or private equity investments because I feel that when you work for a fund and you have control over the capital that you deploy, you can actually manage to grow a lot of other smaller businesses who need capital and fundraising. So once I'm done with my MBA, I want to move back and work in finance, be it private equity, wealth management, or venture capital. I'm still figuring out the division, but I have started applying to a bunch of funds now. So hoping that in the next 2 to 3 months, I convert something and I join that. And long term, I want to start my own fund which focuses a little on women in finance and helping uplift women who should be working or should be in the business arena.
Right, is that what you're quite passionate about, looks like?
Yes, I am, and it comes from a very personal experience. When I first started my job in finance, I was actually one of the first few women in the team because I realized that predominantly investment banking, private equity and asset management is all men club. Things have obviously changed now in the last few years, but predominantly it was like that and historically. So I always felt like as a woman you need to do a little more to be recognized, and I don't think it should be like that. You should do as much as anybody else as your counterpart to be recognized. That's when I realized that I think a lot of women are very good in finance or are passionate about it, but because money matters and finance matters have always been historically a patriarchal thing in India, I wanted to change that because I experienced it somewhere, and I really wanted to make that change. So I started working on my portfolio. I started investing my money as well. I started taking on subjects in Oxford here during my MBA, like private equity, M&A, corporate turnaround, investment banking. I wanted to learn a lot of all of this, hard skills and soft skills, so I could work on that. So post my MBA, I definitely want to be in finance.
Which is quite nice, right? You've got a good purpose to serve.
Yeah.
You mentioned, interestingly, right, a lot of people who study here either move to US, apply for jobs there, or in the UK.
Absolutely.
So you're not doing any of that, or not in the Middle East. Your just focus is core India.
Absolutely. And I know this is very, very different from majority of the MBAs, because I know a lot of my batchmates are targeting Middle East, London, Europe, US. And I would have loved to do that as well, because I'm on a student loan too. But I do feel like the space I am in finance, like wealth management, PE/VC, it's really growing, and the landscape is very high growth looking in India, and I want to leverage that. A, that. B, I have friends and family, and I'm a strong believer that I do well in life when I have my close ones around. So I'm planning to move back for a bunch of reasons. And third, which might be very unusual, but my dog. I have a dog and he's 3 to 4 years old, and it's been hard living away from him here as well. So I want to be in close proximity to my dog as well. Yeah. So, yeah.
No, nice. Good things. Now tell me more about your course. You mentioned about certain modules, right? So now, does it have internship, dissertation, or how is it structured?
Yeah.
And what have you chosen?
Yeah. So there are 4 terms for the entire year of the MBA. Starts with Michaelmas, Hillary, Trinity, and then the last one is your long summer vacation term. So Michaelmas is where you do your core subjects, where you don't have an option to choose. You're given core subjects and you kind of stick to that. That kind of solidifies your basis business skills via accounting or organizational behavior, business analytics, etc. Hillary onwards, you start choosing a little basis your interests. So we have a module called Go-To, which is Global Opportunities Threats module. That helps you think about systems thinking. Like, it gives you a problem and you need to think of a business solution to that via systems thinking. So it's a very interesting course. You do more of a real life example, business problem example, case study. So Hillary term was about Go-To and a few other courses. Then further onwards, you start choosing electives. So then you get to choose what you really are interested in. So like I mentioned, I took a bunch of finance courses, but someone out there could be taking more of product courses or marketing related courses or leadership courses. So it offers you a lot. For example, there's a very unique course that I had taken called Reputation and Leadership. It's an amazing course. So that kind of elective, you get to choose. You bid for electives here because people here are nerds, right? They all want the best courses. So you have to bid for your electives here.
Okay.
So there are very interesting courses where are non-businessy, like reputation leadership, business of arts and culture. That makes you think differently. So while I had a lot of finance courses, I also balanced it out with a few electives which weren't directly quant heavy or finance heavy. For example, reputation and leadership. It made me think a little differently. There's another elective that I took this semester called Business 2030, which helps you think about what businesses look like in 2030. So the moment you mix up certain traditional conservative courses like private equity with Business 2030, you build a larger landscape of thinking through. So, and then in the last semester, you have an option to choose an internship or a strategic consulting project, or you can further take electives. I have opted for the electives because I wanted to maximize my time in Oxford, but a bunch of people who want to maybe work in London or the US have chosen to do electives, so to choose the internship, so that they could convert that internship into a full-time role.
Right, I get it. Nice. So how has your experience been overall, right, in the side business school, right? What expectation versus reality, right? What you assumed before coming, is that all been satisfactory or way above your expectations?
It has actually been way above my expectations. Obviously, when you get in, you start dreaming about all the flowery things, right? You start thinking of all the Oxford Harry Potter dinners that you're going to do, the balls that are here, Oxford pertinent. But that's just a part of it. A huge part of it is your mundane life here in Oxford, and Oxford is a small town. So it seems very lovely when you come here and you think everything's going to be so exciting every day, but obviously it dies down and then the real life hits in and semesters begin and you have a hard course to do because an MBA is not the easiest course. And with the MBA comes a lot of networking with a lot of people, right? So I think my journey has been above expectation, but I also feel like anyone applying should have a very realistic picture of how much burden can they take out of the course, because it's a very rewarding course, but you need to be very brave, courageous and kind to do this, kind to yourself and everyone else, because it is pressurizing. It is a high pressure environment and it teaches you, molds you to be a very sought after, put together, calm person, even in the most high pressure environments, because it's the real business world that they're preparing you for. So I would say the business school in itself is quite high pressure in terms of the studies, but Oxford University as a whole is brilliantly beautiful and it is so nicely paced. If you just put yourself out there and meet a lot of other non-MBAs, like other course people, you start doing all the traditional Oxford cultural things, you're gonna develop more holistically. So, and that's what I have been trying to do. I don't just spend my time at the business school. I try to go to other colleges like Worcester and stuff that you were there too, right?
Yes.
You get a lot to learn from other kids doing other courses, a different perspective. That just helps you grow a little differently.
Right. Nice. Devika, your story is really inspiring, and I'm sure a lot of students who want to aspire to come to universities abroad, and especially top ones, especially with your age, right? Because I always thought going to a university like Oxford, Cambridge, you need that 5-7 years of buffer, big names on your CV, right? But you've done it the other way. So I'm sure it'd be inspiring. To end off, anything you would want to tell our students, or end it with anything, please.
Absolutely, and thank you for this. I would just like to say that own the story that you have. Do not think that someone else's story is better than yours or lesser than yours. You have something very unique to offer, so just own where you come from, stay very rooted. Any part of you that says, oh, I have this, but that person doesn't have that, that's where you lose. You should always be grounded and rooted, because these values really help me put the most authentic profile out there and be the most authentic version here until now. So I would just say that own your story, be very rooted and grounded, and be your most authentic self, not anybody else. So that's about it, and all the best.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Student Spotlight. We hope you found today's discussion valuable. If you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe and share it with your friends. We'll be back soon with some more stories and insights. Until then, continue learning and growing. See you in the next episode.